What is going on, everybody? This is the All Access podcast. We are back to talk a little bit of Panthers football. Week 2's on the horizon. Week 1 is behind us. The first win of the season is in the rearview mirror, and staring us in the headlights is a man named Jameis Winston and this New Orleans Saints team. Joining me today is Gray. Gray, how you doing, bud?
Man, I'm doing great. I had a productive but long day at work today, so excited to hop on here and chat with you guys about a little Panther football and kind of just get into it. I've been looking forward to this all week, so I hope you guys have too.
Yeah, dude, I am stoked. Ever since week 1 happened, so that, that big 19-14 win over the Jets, I thought it could have been more. I think a lot of people were really hyped after the first half of that Panthers game. We'll get into that in a little bit, but big things happening, man. Are you excited? Are you in full football mode? Or are you still kind of like easing into the NFL season?
Oh no, man, I'm in full football mode. I last weekend spent most of the weekend on my couch watching Panther football, watching App State football, other NFL games, other college games. I was just soaking it all in. It is so much fun to have it back. I think we've all been waiting all summer for it. So it's great to see all the guys out there together, at the same time. It's everything that, we were hoping for, especially because we got that win in the books.
Yeah, dude, it feels good to get the win out of the way. I mean, you don't know how many you're going to follow, but it's good to get the first one in, get some get some motivation and get a little bit of happiness under these guys, especially being such a young team. We've talked about that a number of times. But this is the All Access podcast. We are live most weeks. I know sometimes we got busy lives, just like you have busy lives. Things happen, and we can't be live every week, but we are live today. And hop in the chat if you're here with us. We want to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. We're not always right. We're not always wrong. There's a lot of things that can be said about everything that's happening. But Jets, Panthers, week 1, that's in the books, 19-14. Sam Darnold gets a win against his former team. What'd you think of the Robbie Anderson, the Jet celebration after he scored his tutty?
Great. This is great, man. It was awesome. And, he used to do that for them, though, is the thing. He'd catch touchdowns for them, and he'd throw the jet out. So I thought it was fitting. I thought it was fine. It was great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he retired it after he left. I mean, you can't really do that as a Panther. I mean, he's still fast like a Jet. I get it. But I feel like you kind of had to retire it. But it felt good to see that. Like, I know he loved being able to do that.
I'm sure he was thinking about that all week long, Bradley. He knew exactly what he was going to do if he got in that end zone.
Without a doubt. He was like, man, listen, when I score this touchdown, which was a beautiful pass, by the way, by Sam Darnold. Christian McCaffrey, everyone's already named it like the greatest block of all time by Christian McCaffrey, and allowed him to get free and make a huge play for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, man, it was exciting. On top of just that play, so good to see everybody out there together. Obviously, things to work on. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit, but just in general, in terms of, initial reactions to the weekend, it was just fun to see, CMC standing there next to Sam. I'll tell you what, it was fun to see that defense go to work on Sunday. Seeing that defensive line at full force, watching the linebackers, really fly around the way that, I feel like they used to. And just watching guys like Jeremy Chin, J.C. Horn, and Dante Jackson go to work. I mean, that defense looks fast and they're hungry. And, we hadn't really seen the full picture until this past Sunday. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be taking it lightly if I was in the NFC South.
Yeah, I mean, they had a steady rotation of people. It's a lot of people, and we'll probably get into this in a minute, but it's still a very college-esque team in terms of not only age, but how they're coached. And there is a steady rotation of players that they want to get in there. From, Daquan Jones, Derek Brown probably took 60% of the snaps on the defensive line. There's still a lot of Davion Nixon that got in there. Bravion Roy was in there a couple times. And so even Yeater took some from the inside at one point, big number 97. It's fun to see because they're so athletic and they'll be able to keep going even on these hot days like they had. It's going to be a lot of fun to see this defense going. David Brown hopping in the chat. Our first comment of the day says, 1-0 boys, let's go. What's up with Dante Jackson? Played out of his mind along with Shaq. I think Shaq played one of the best games I have ever seen Shaq Thompson play in a Panthers uniform. I think it has to say a lot about him going back to the outside, being where he was comfortable. But I'll let you get into that because I know you, again, I think you like Shaq, right? You're a big Shaq fan.
I'm a big Shaq guy, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. What'd you make of his first performance as number 7?
I mean, he said it himself in the post game. He said he put that 7 on. He felt like he's back at Washington, and it looked like he's that young again. You know what I mean? He's flying around as fast as ever. I think I was impressed with his ability in coverage more than anything else. Shaq hadn't had an interception, I think, since 2016
It's
until
crazy.
that game. Unbelievable with as many coverage snaps as he plays at linebacker. So I thought that was great for him. That Shaq's going to play sideline to sideline in terms of the run
Yeah.
game and his ability to get to the football once there is a tackle or to be made. You know what I mean? That the ball's in someone's hands. But his ability this weekend to make plays before the ball ever got to guys, while that ball was in the air, obviously he had the interception. He should have had a second one. I was really impressed with the way he was able to play in the pass coverage, which is something we maybe really haven't seen a ton from him in the last couple of seasons specifically.
Yeah, and it allowed the defensive line that you've already mentioned allowed the defensive backs to play a lot more aggressive. Being able to not. I think week one. I think there was a stat, and again, this is going off the top of my head, but this is Bradley. If you're only listening to the audio, this is Bradley when he says this. So if it's wrong, it's Bradley's fault. I believe we only had, as a Panthers team, I believe they only had 7 pressures or quarterback pressures week 1 last year.
Yes.
This year was something around like 32, 34.
I think it was 4 last year and 33 this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Insane numbers. Yeah. Like Zach Wilson, very good on the run. The Jets' offensive line, not very good. They were without Mekhi Becton as well, who went down with a dislocated kneecap, by the way, which is
devastating for them.
Horrible. For them, for any team to lose an offensive lineman like that. But for him to go down, best wishes in him getting back and healthy. But to be able to generate that kind of pressure constantly with what felt like rushing usually 4, there was a couple where they only rushed 2 or 3 guys. To be able to get Zach Wilson on the run, and it forces him to throw faster. Defensive backs can make plays because they're not going to get beat on the double move. Again, Jets not an elite team, but there's a lot of positives to take away from that first game.
Well, I'll tell you one big positive too, Bradley, is Phil Snow knows his unit, and he really knows how to use his guys to their strengths. And I've been mightily impressed by Phil Snow from what that defense looked like at the beginning of last season to what they looked like at the end of last season and now this past Sunday. I mean, it's impressive. He has turned that unit around. He's got those guys on the ball, and it is great. It's fun to see as a Panther fan. And the one thing about that pressure, Bradley, that I really like that Phil Snow did this past Sunday is, they blitzed early. And I thought that was a really, really smart play by Phil Snow because you have a rookie quarterback coming into this game, a choppy offensive line from the Jets. Mm-hmm. And so, Matt Rule said it himself. He said Phil decided early on he was going to blitz. And that was brilliant because what happened was we got home early on the blitz. Brian Burns had a sack early on. Several guys made big plays early on. I think we had 6 sacks in the games, and a couple of them came off of some pressures right in that first quarter from Phil Snow, putting early pressure, sending some extra guys. To your point, Bradley, he sent a couple extra guys early on. So what that does is then that gets in ahead of a rookie quarterback sometimes. And credit to Zach Wilson, he played a phenomenal football game, and the Jets should be really excited about what they have in him. But to speak on his young nature in this league, he felt that pressure early and often. And so then later on, circling back to what you said, when they only had to send 4 guys, sometimes 3 guys, I'll tell you what, those 4 guys feel a lot hotter on your back when early on in the game you had 6 guys coming at you and they got to you. They got home quick. So those 4 guys start to make you sweat a little more when you know that those 6 guys got home earlier, so that's kind of floating on in the back of your mind. So I love that Phil Snow did that on Sunday.
Yeah, like you were trying to get into there, like the first hit, you're like, okay, that's big. The second hit as a quarterback, you're thinking, okay, that's enough. Calm down. 3 times, you're like, all right, that's enough. And then 4 times, 5 times. Well, now it's just any pressure feels like it's a hit, even though it's not. You're not physically touching him. It feels like that you're getting the same results. And you kind of dove into something that, before we get into the Saints and the Panthers breakdown and what we kind of predict for that game, I kind of want to get into this coaching thing because it's something that's on a lot of people's minds right now. Phil Snow looks phenomenal as a defensive coordinator. That you can see that there is a vast improvement. He's making great play calls. They're making great adjustments. There's still some issues to be worked out. Do not get me wrong. The rush defense, I still don't think is there completely. We didn't get to see that against the New York Jets, obviously, with Tevin Coleman back there as your starter. But the inabilities to get down on third down, we saw that all year last year. But there is a overall improvement. If you look at the offensive side of the ball with Joe Brady, there's still a lot of question marks. There's still a lot of people that are getting and growing more concerned with him. He's touted as being one of the most brilliant offensive minds in the league. A lot of people, he was interviewing for head coaching jobs. Coming out of LSU, automatically people were saying he needs a head coaching opportunity. What do you make of the offensive side of the ball and the coaching that's going on there?
Sure. No, I mean, you bring up a great point. And to be fair, I think Joe Brady, it's a funny situation. I feel like he honestly still has more potential than Phil Snow does if you look at what he could do, if he really, puts that LSU offense to work and kind of adapts it to this NFL world and puts those pieces together with the guys he has. Because, I mean, he's got some unbelievable athletes on the offensive side. The thing that people have been harping on Joe Brady for that obviously I think anybody could point a finger at is a lot of red zone problems.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about Sunday is this, as many times as I could point at plays where I didn't agree with Joe Brady in the red zone, or I felt like there were other things that we could have done or guys that we could have gone to, two different times in the red zone, Sam Darnold misses I believe it was Ian Thomas on a seam route right up the middle.
Yep.
I mean, he had him. He was right there. It was a great play call. He beat the linebacker off the step. And honestly, that's a catch that Greg Olsen makes because Greg Olsen's a special guy, but Ian Thomas ain't Greg Olsen. And Sam Darnold missed him. He could have put it right in his chest. So, that's not Joe Brady's fault. That's him calling the right play and a fault of execution. And then I can't even remember if it was the same drive anymore, but, also in the red zone, Sam Darnold, takes a snap and I formation, and Christian McCaffrey had a touchdown. If you look at the whole by the offensive line, it was plenty enough to get him through. But fullback, who's actually tight end in Ricci, runs a little bit too close to Sam. Sam maybe sticks the ball out a little early and knocks the ball out, something that Matt Rule said they've done 100 times in practice and never once fumbled on. So, little mental error there in the red zone costs you some points. And, that kid, that's not on Joe Brady either. So there's moments in the game where, when the game ends or something's going on, I can be quick to say, Joe, like, what are you doing? But you look back on the game and you think about some of the moments, and there are times where I do say to myself, hey, he called the right play there and they just didn't execute. So I think it's a little both, Bradley. I think Joe Brady's got some work to do in terms of just being more consistent in the red zone. You shouldn't be relying on that one play to get you in. You should have a bunch of plays that can get you in there, and you have a whole bag that you can reach into. And sometimes it looks like he struggles to find that play that's going to get him in. At the same time, when he does call the right play, guys got to execute it. So I'm looking for some better red zone play against the Saints this weekend. I know the Saints have a much better defense than the New York Jets do, but that was the first week of this offense getting to play on a real NFL field together and in real time football, and so. There's going to be kinks to work out. Offense always has the most kinks to work out early in the season. The defense always looks great early on because everybody's offense is screwing up. So I think there's a lot to look forward to here for Panther fans. And in terms of Joe Brady specifically, I've had my frustrations with him, but I think there were some things he did right too that just weren't executed the right way.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the hot seat yet. I know a lot of people are really adamant that like Joe Brady needs to get it fixed now. But like, still give it some time, man. Last year, we can only use this excuse for a little bit longer, but last year was the COVID year. He didn't have Christian McCaffrey. He now has a new quarterback.
His first year in the NFL. I mean, you got to give him a break too there.
Exactly. It's a big change. Maybe it's the play calling. I don't know. College has a different style of playing calls and a different cadence to it and a different tempo. There's a lot of things that go into it, but one big thing that I do want to point out is I don't want a bad quarterback play to fault Joe Brady as well. I know that I'm the one that brought up the Joe Brady comments, or concerns. I don't want Sam Darnold to just be comfortable in his safety blanket and only get the ball to CMC, which I think a lot of people will say, oh, that's conservative play calling. They're only going to CMC, who had 30 some odd touches in the first game. Yeah. When in actuality, that's just Sam Darnold saying, hey, CMC is always open. Why would I not go to the always open individual rather than take chances down the field and make a big play to Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore with the sick toe drag down the sideline with one of the best catches that will probably be all season for this Carolina Panthers offense. So
Man,
we have that.
and in terms of, CMC and his touches, I know Panther fans don't love seeing him take 30 touches the first game. Everybody screams, what are we going to do? Is he going to get 30 touches every game? I mean, honestly, I think it's possible he gets 30 touches every game, but I think they're thinking the same way everybody else is. I mean, if you guys don't think that Matt Rule and Joe Brady have thought about the fact that, they signed him to a long-term contract and they'd like him to be valuable through that entire contract, I think you're kidding yourself. They absolutely have thought about that stuff. Another thing about Christian McCaffrey is, Derrick Henry's touches are primarily between the tackles, that meaning the left tackle and the right tackle, or maybe right off their hip. But he's not getting too many touches out in the flat or out in open space. He's having to, fight his way and muscle his way through the middle. Christian McCaffrey might have had 30 touches, and, the majority of those touches, I think he had 21 carries. But of those 21 carries, a lot of them are bouncing him outside, playing him off the outside of the tackles or just off the inside of the left or right tackle. They're finding ways to try to get him out into space or spread the defense out when they do hand it off to him, so there's not guys just packed in the box. Did they give him some single back carries? Did they give him some ISO carries, right off the center's hip? Absolutely, because he can run that way. He's the most versatile running back in the NFL. Of course, you're going to use him in a lot of different ways. That's what keeps defenses guessing. The thing that they've figured out with him, and I think that, people also need to understand about him, is that when your touches are out in the flats and open space against guys your size, and you're getting those touches downfield on pass catches where you can make moves to avoid big tackles, and realistically out of that 21 carries, maybe 10 of them are straight up through the middle, big time, big running back carries. That's going to prolong your longevity while you're also utilizing the best offensive weapon in the entire NFL. So I like what they did with him. I think 30 carries or 30 touches, is plenty, but it's not too many. I think it's perfect, to be honest. You're using the guy that you paid the money for, and you're using him at a pace in certain schemes and ways where I think you are going to keep him durable. So I liked it.
Yeah, I think his touches are obviously going to have to remain there. Again, like you said, they paid all this money. They're going to get their money's worth. But they're gonna take care of him as well. Those not tough wall to wall running into a brick wall. I think is going to help him. One thing
I think they also, Bradley, real quick, they did something too that maybe Ron struggled to do for Cam Newton when Cam Newton was going through his injury phase, and that is, Christian McCaffrey got injured last year, and I don't think they pushed him to get on the field too fast. When he came back and got re-injured, it was a completely unrelated injury to the first one. So, I know that could be potentially concerning, but the point is that, he hurt himself. They gave him plenty of time to get fully, rehabilitated, and then he got back out on the field, suffered another unfortunate injury, a weird injury where a guy just falls on him, and, his shoulder gets kind of crunched up in there, and he has that second injury, and then guess what? You have all off season. They didn't try to force him back on the field. And, in the preseason, they didn't use him at all, which I thought was really, really smart. I mean, why even take the risk when the guy's the best player on offense, maybe in the whole league? So I think they're managing him the right way. And, if he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and that's awful. And it's unfortunate. And we all hope that doesn't happen. But, what are you going to pay a guy that much money and then only give him the ball, 15, 20 times a game? I think that's a mistake. So,
yeah. I would agree with that. Looking ahead at the New Orleans Saints, they have a guy in their backfield, Alvin Kamara. Last week, 20 attempts, 83 yards. Jameis Winston, he put up good numbers in terms of touchdowns with 5 touchdowns. I think he had 148 yards on, 15 completions, something like that. They had a very effective and efficient day against the Green Bay Packers. I think Jameis Winston's living on top of the world right now after he got the LASIK that we've talked about. He's with Sean Payton. He's got one of the best offensive lines in the country playing in front of him. He has got to be on cloud 9 right now, but he's going to be seeing this Carolina Panthers defense, which we're very hopeful for. What do you make of the Saints week 1 and turning it into week 2? Is this for real? Is this a for real team, or is it, hey, this was a flash in the pan? Let's just simmer down. Jameis will be Jameis. It'll even out. 5 picks this week, right?
I think it could float somewhere in the middle, to be honest. I'll tell you what. I think that for our defense, it's going to be important to remember that, this is a similar Saints team still to who we play every season and have not had good success against recently. But
horrible success.
it really is, I feel like people are talking about this New Orleans Saints team, worse than they were when they had Drew Brees. And we had to play against them when they had Drew Brees twice a year, every year. So, this is an important game. It's a division game. You have to win your division games. But to me, I think this is a nice opportunity for the Carolina Panthers. Jameis Winston has historically not had very good success against us. We have had his number defensively in the past. And so I think our ability to put pressure on the quarterback shown in that first game, if we can transition that over to this game, yes, granted against a better offensive line, but, I think this D-line is going to get home against a lot of people, regardless of whether they have a good offensive line or not. We had 6 sacks last week. Yeah. We don't need 6 sacks this week to win the game. We could win this game and get 4 sacks and be fine. So I think that, we're going to put pressure on Jameis. I think that, if they try to put the ball in his hands too much, we'll force him to make bad decisions. The thing about last week was they were incredibly efficient with Jameis. And so if they can do that again, the Saints against the Panthers this week, I think they could be really successful. The key for them is going to be giving the ball to the guy who has historically had success against us, and that's Alvin Kamara. Yeah. You talked about him earlier, but he's an absolutely dynamic playmaker. His pass catching ability out of the backfield is second to none. Next to Christian McCaffrey, probably the best in the league. Yeah. His ability, and Matt Rule kind of pointed this out, which I thought was an interesting, thing to point out. It's not something that people talk about too much, and so I'll reiterate it here, is that he has great contact balance. And essentially what that means is when he gets hit, he can maintain his body weight underneath his feet, and stay on balance to keep his momentum going forward, to keep his legs underneath him. If your legs are underneath you, you can run more powerfully. So as a small guy, his ability to keep his balance and his weight centered underneath his legs, even through contact, allows him to run through opponents bigger than him because their weight isn't centered and they are off balance. And so he, has that bull mentality, even as a little guy, where he can, play a lot bigger than he is. And obviously he's a speedster on his own. So, he's a dangerous threat. I think if the Saints move the ball through him a lot, it's going to make it hard for our defensive line to put pressure on the quarterback because we're going to be focused on trying to keep Alvin Kamara contained. That could free up Jameis Winston to throw 20, 25 passes and have a really successful game. Now, if we can be successful in the run, stopping Kamara, we can get home a little bit to Jameis early on, similarly to Zach Wilson, force him to maybe make a few bad decisions, take some of that pressure off of our corners. I think we have a very good chance of winning that football game. If Jameis throws 30-plus passes, I think we have a very good chance of winning that football game. Yeah. The more that we can take the ball out of Alvin Kamara's hands and force Jameis Winston to try to pick apart our defense through the air as we put pressure on him, that's where we're going to be successful. So, our offense is a big question mark. I think, it's going to be interesting to see them go against a really, really stout Saints unit. But defensively is where we're going to win this football game if we're going to have a shot. And I think that's where it starts, is putting pressure on Jameis early, focusing in on Alvin Kamara. Do not let him get comfortable in this football game.
Yeah, I think Alvin Kamara is the guy who, obviously, as you mentioned, has kind of beat us over the last few years. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry against the Carolina Panthers. He's a threat out of the backfield, coverage in the flat, especially against Drew Brees, who is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time at routes under 7 yards. I think Alvin Kamara, it's weird to say, but I think you have to force Alvin Kamara to beat you in this one. Like, put the pressure on Jameis Winston. Make Alvin Kamara be the number one player.
See, I think it's the opposite. I think you take the ball out of Alvin Kamara's hands and you make Jameis Winston beat you. And then at that point, once they have him throwing, they get down in that game and you shut down Kamara, and now Jameis has to throw the football to save the clock, you can just send pressure all day and just let those corners eat. I mean, that personally, I guess that's how I would see it.
Hey, man, listen, to each his own. I think listen, there's a lot that can be said.
I think if you force Alvin Kamara to beat you, he puts up 200 yards, 3 tutties, and he beats you. I mean, he's that good of a player. I think I'd rather, historically, knowing what Jameis Winston's done against us, force him to win the football game, right?
Hey, listen, there's not a whole lot of offensive weapons. In my opinion, my humble opinion, there's not a whole lot of offensive weapons that Jameis Winston can throw to for that team right now, outside of Alvin Kamara. So, we can put the balls in his hands. I'm cool with that. We'll force Marquez Callaway and Deontay Harris and Traquan to go put up a few dozen points down there, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get it done.
That's my mentality. But I feel you. I hear you. I'm not trying to cut you down. I'm just saying, a
But the
little
Saints do
friendly
have
competition
they
there.
have a lot of other concerns that they got to be taken care of right now. So
Sure.
they have potentially six coaches that could be held out of this game.
Hmm.
They have a defensive lineman that just got injured. I can't remember who, but one of the defensive linemen's out. They have a cornerback that's also out. So I mean, Sam Darnold, you have two good games here to go against defenses that, even though the Saints did play very good against Aaron Rodgers, first action of the year for Aaron Rodgers, first action of the year for Devontae Adams, like that team didn't play in the preseason.
I'll tell you what. I don't think Aaron's
But
gonna have a good year either. So that on top of it.
that was scary. But you've got two defenses now that you're going up against that are either injury laden or not at their prime. Sam Darnold's going to have to perform, I think. I think Saints are going to they're going to sell out and stop CMC and force Sam Darnold, because they have to have sort of that same mentality of, hey,
Right.
Sam Darnold, he's known to throw a pick or two.
Sure.
By the way, number 2 in the NFL as rated by PFF last week against the pressure. So go on, Sam Darnold. There you go. Show them how to scramble and show them how to be effective. But I think the Saints, they got a lot of problems that they're dealing with coming all the way to Carolina. They haven't been at home in 3 or 4 weeks because of Hurricane Ida, unfortunately. But that's another concern for the Saints.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good opportunity for this Panther team to start 2-0, beat a division rival, get Sam Darnold on the right track. I mean, you tweeted about this a little bit earlier, I think, Bradley, but this is a big game for this team. I mean, this is
a very big game.
Must win is hard to say, but, division games are kind of must wins, and this is an early one to secure a little more momentum, get that, 2-0 going. And like I said, like, Sam Darnold's confidence is paramount right now. And so to get him feeling good, behind his weapons, behind this offensive line, get him understanding this system, get some wins under his belt, that's going to propel him to success. And if early on, he loses to a division rival, maybe loses the confidence of some of these Panther fans, that are kind of still on the fence about him, potentially it ends up a similarly difficult situation to New York, besides that he's not quite in the spotlight as heavily. So this could be a paramount game for Sam Darnold in terms of his confidence moving forward. The team's confidence moving forward, going 1-0 in the NFC South is a huge deal. So this is a big game for this Panther team. You got to win games at home. So there's a lot of reasons that this team, really needs to come out with the win this weekend. The thing that you said that was interesting to me, Bradley, is, the strategies for these two defenses are going to be similar. Yeah. I think that for the Saints to probably win this game in terms of shutting us down offensively, they should put all their chips on stopping CMC. I think you're right. I would force Sam Darnold to try to go to his playmakers to beat me on the outside, especially if I feel like right, exactly. We do have some good ones, but I think the Saints have a really nice secondary too. I know they have that injury as well, but they've got some guys where Sean Payton might decide, you know what, I'm gonna sell out on CMC. I'm going to force these playmakers to beat my playmakers one-on-one, and then at the same time, I'm going to force Sam Darnold to find those guys, because just because they get open doesn't mean that Sam Darnold's necessarily going to find them. So
yeah, I think again the comfort of CMC, having CMC back there, that's who Sam Darnold's going to be looking for. No matter who's open, Sam Darnold's going to be looking for CMC. But I think I called it a must-perform game, because even though there was a very good first half, an excellent first half against the New York Jets, I don't think that was a complete game. Sam Darnold had, 34 yards? Like 234 yards going into the third quarter. Panthers got the ball first, and I think he put up 30 passing yards in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. Like, what happened?
Part of that, I will say, part of that I pinned on, we talked about Joe earlier, and I was kind of justifying some of his red zone issues, but that was one thing that I really disliked from Joe Brady in that game last weekend was, he took the foot off the gas when the Panthers were hot. They started running really simple plays. They tried to burn a lot of clock. And I guess at the end of the game, it paid off because the Jets caught some momentum and they just didn't have enough time to, catch back up in the game. But I think part of the reason they caught up momentum in the first place is the Panthers took a really, really passive approach offensively. It put our defense on the field a lot, and in some situations, bad, positions. And so it allowed the Jets to make quick work of a couple drives and, catch that momentum. And I think if we were more aggressive offensively and just allowed Sam and this offense to do what they did in the first half, potentially that is a runaway football game. So I think, I credit a little bit of that to Joe Brady and maybe Matt Rule if he was kind of on that train too, don't take your foot off the gas when you're winning, man. Yeah, especially not this Panther team, this young Panther team that needs confidence. You go home and play Jets week 1 and come out with a 35-0 win. There's nothing wrong with that. So,
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed they took the foot off the gas. I felt like the intensity dropped at the second half. 34 passing yards, like you said, in the third quarter, as opposed to over 200 in the first half. It was just like, man, I don't really get that. So
yeah. Carolina Panthers. It's a huge game, and I know we've said that numerous times. The atmosphere in there is going to be electric.
Yeah,
it's a big game in the fans' eyes, and with all the things that have been happening and the rumblings this week of the keep pounding chant not happening in the stadium, and allegedly the Carolina Panthers saying, "Oh, we wanted it to start organically. We don't have to nudge the fans in the right direction in order for the keep pounding chant to go."
right.
I think that place is going to be on fire. I think this will be one of the loudest regular season games that we've had in recent memory, outside of maybe the Seattle game a few years ago. I think this is going to be a massive, massive game. It's going to be extremely loud, and I am here for it because it has been too long since the Carolina Panthers fans who just sit down in their cozy little comfy seats for them to get up on their feet, get rowdy like they do up in the 500s, in the upper level, the nosebleeds, the drunkers, the fun people, the people where I sit. That's what I want to see from everyone. And I think the fans and Panther Nation are going to be very, very loud. Dave Brown, by the way, says, "What's up with the kicking situation? At this point, should we have just kept Joey Sly?" It's kind of a rotation going forward. I do not like Zane Gonzalez. I will go on record as saying I do not like Zane Gonzalez as a kicker who has a worse percentage than Joey Sly did in his career. It's by like 0.2 points, but
sure.
This is something that should have been addressed a long time ago.
No, I agree. Listen, so short answer to your question, David, and thank you for hopping in the chat. We appreciate you, David. We love when people hop in here and help guide the conversation. It's my favorite part. So, in terms of your question, though, no, I don't think we should have just kept Sly, and here's why. For me, there's a fine line between sticking by your kicker who, you have confidence in and is your guy, and, maybe he's a veteran or what have you, and also just playing, unfortunately with kickers, the recency bias with them, their confidence, how they are feeling in the moment right now. And so, with kickers, it's an extremely mental game. It is almost completely mental. Those guys are almost automatic. Yeah, some guys might have a bigger, more accurate leg, what have you, than others, but those guys are polished, and it's to the point where all of them are relatively similar.
Yeah.
The thing that differentiates one kicker from the next is how cold-blooded they are, honestly, and how much they can, put the last kick behind them if they missed, have that confidence they're going to make the next one. And sometimes when you see guys get in that funk, man, it is hard to dig yourself out of that hole, and it is a mental game, and it gets harder and harder the more kicks you start missing. The more you start missing, that it's a snowball effect for kickers. And so when you see guys like Joey Sly, I know he had a great weekend week 1. I'm so glad for him, genuinely.
Yeah.
Maybe that change of scenery kind of allowed him to reset that clock. But for me, Joey Sly was struggling in Carolina. His confidence was struggling in Carolina. The fans were kind of on him in Carolina.
Oh, yeah,
and
they were tough.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that it was going to be tough for him to bounce back. And if he was going to, it was going to take some time. So, and the Panthers don't have that time. I'll credit Panthers culture for tweeting out this one, but he said, I'll know the kickers, I'll know the Panthers are serious about winning when they sign a kicker. And I agree with that wholeheartedly, because, a good kicker is important in this league. It can win or lose you football games. Panther fans know that from, our past history. And so, I think that the fact that the Panthers are signing kickers and rotating them is unfortunate, because you'd like to have that guy. However, what it tells me is maybe they're looking for that guy that's hot, that can just get on a roll. Yeah, you know what? Maybe Zane Gonzalez's career numbers are worse, but hey, if he can get on a streak this season, and we can play that recency bias with him, that confidence a little bit, maybe do what Joey Sly is hopefully going to do with his new team and reset that clock, maybe we can get the best out of him. So I think that's kind of my feeling with the kickers is, find the guy that's hot, ride him as long as you can, be patient with him, but not too patient, because for kickers, it's totally a mental game.
Yeah, he makes a good point. He says Harrison Butker, just thinking of that makes him sick. It's funny because Harrison Butker and Graham Gano are two of the most accurate kickers in the NFL right now, both obviously former Carolina Panthers, so that does sting a little bit, but they still have options, It's something that needs to get figured out by the end of the year. There's that extra wild card spot, so I don't know if it's going to cost you the playoffs, but it'll cost you a game here and there, without a doubt, if you don't have that solid kicking game. Again, this coaching staff, it's something that we've kind of talked about. Matt Rule needs to focus up a little bit, and it's just one of those things where it should have been addressed a long time ago. It's something that the fans were pointing out. It's something that national media was pointing out. It's just weird that the coaches didn't address it as soon as we wanted it addressed. I get that Joey Sly has a big leg. He gets you the guaranteed touchback. He apparently was crushing it in practice, but he wasn't performing. So, had to move on a little bit. Not to put you on the spot here, but I need a prediction for this week. I need a prediction for Saints Panthers before we get out of here. I need to know what's the final score going to be, and are the Carolina Panthers going 2-0 in the road to 17-0, or are they going to be 1-1 after this week?
Yeah. No, I got you. I'm thinking about how I feel about this week. I'm gonna go 27-20 Carolina.
Ooh.
I think I'm gonna go
27-20.
I'm trying to think about how it'll play out. I think that the Saints will come out and they'll have a couple, really nice sequences. Sean Payton is as much as I hate to admit it, a good offensive coach. He has a good offensive mind. Brilliant. And so I think he'll come out with some good plays for us. He'll study us. He knows us well. He's going to come out with a few things that, maybe he dials up against us. But I think our defense figures them out. And we figure out Jameis, and we shut down Kamara a little bit. We start to get some of that pressure home, and I think the Panthers make a little comeback in this one. Maybe Sam gets rolling in the second half a little bit. Saints make a late push, but Panthers hold them off. 27-20, Carolina at home.
27-20. I like the idea. I'm going 31-23, Carolina Panthers. I think the Saints do get a couple of field goals. I think Jameis is able to move the ball down the field, a couple extended drives, but that defense will bow up in the red zone area, and it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big victory for the Carolina Panthers, and going 2-0, because you already know I have them going 17-0.
That's right. I do. Hey, I hope that it happens. I will ride that train with you until that it's no longer there. So
it is going to happen, man. It is gonna happen. But I think we're about to get out of here. We've got to watch a little bit of Thursday night football happening right now. I know your roommate probably just got home. Good old Mackie, if you don't know who he is, he's the guy with the big head that comes on here occasionally and talks sports. But it's been a good one. Gray, do you have any final words, any parting things to say?
Yeah, man. I got two if you got time.
Absolutely.
All right. That's what I love about this show, man. We guide the conversation. Whatever's on your mind, whatever's on my mind, we just roll with it.
Just
I love
go with it.
So two things. First thing, Panther related. I was gonna bring this up a little bit earlier, but yeah, you see J.C. Horn's interception today on Twitter.
Thing was nasty.
How about that? I mean, golly, I loved watching Panther Twitter react to that. People were stoked about it. I was stoked about it. Let's do some of that on Sunday, J.C. Horn. My goodness.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, unbelievable.
Absolutely want to see that, because we didn't really harp on that. I think there was a comment or a message in the comments or in the chat about J.C. Horn not being picked on. Surprisingly, most people want to pick on the rookie defensive back, but I think did he give up a catch last week? He might have given up one.
He did. He gave up I think 2 receptions. One of them was a touchdown reception. But I'll tell you what, it was a dime by Zach Wilson, and if J.C. had been a hair earlier, or Zach would have thrown it an inch more inside, he's getting a hand on it, and it's not a touchdown. So, I mean, he played the ball the right way. He did everything he could in single coverage on the outside, and it was literally on the 2-yard line. It was just a little zig route, really tough route to cover, especially down there on the goal line. So, props to him. He was about this far away from making the play.
Yeah, it was a great performance out of J.C. Horn week 1. So, I mean, that's good news for that defensive back situation, that he played that good of a game. And then you said you have a second thing.
I do. So, Bradley, I'm bringing this up because you are an App State graduate. I am an App State graduate. We are App State guys, App State football fans. We love North Carolina sports. We will talk any college sports with you in terms of North Carolina. However, Bradley and I are going to be a little partial to Appalachian State. as graduates. And today on Twitter, I was raging about this, man. I was mad about this. So App State is notorious for how creative their video team is. They've got a really great cast of guys. A lot of them are students, and just an unbelievable team. Go to App State football's Twitter. They're awesome. They really do have some cool jersey reveals. They'll do stadium videos and just, all kinds of stuff, man. I couldn't even tell you everything they do, but they did a very, very popular jersey reveal last year for the game against UNC Charlotte. It was a jersey reveal where the Thomas Hennigan is wearing his all black jersey, and he rises up out of the water at this waterfall up in Boone. And, he starts pounding on the water, and they get these tight shots of the waterfall and stuff. And it's an awesome jersey reveal video. And today on Twitter, Duke football put out their jersey reveal video for this weekend, and they're wearing their classic jerseys. They're all whites. They're great looking jerseys. But it disappointed me, man. They almost frame by frame copied the exact same jersey reveal video that they did more than a year ago, back in 2020. And it was just like disappointing, man. I was just like, Duke is supposed to be one of the best schools in this state. You guys are academically sound, but you can't come up with your own video content. So I apologize to any Duke fans out there listening.
You call them smart, but
shout
plagiarizing.
Out your social team and tell them to get some of their own ideas, because Max Renfro in particular is somebody that I know worked very, very hard on that video for App State football. Super, super creative mind, and he got his work ripped off today by Duke football. I thought that was really disappointing. So I know I don't want to end on a bad note, so we can talk about one more thing really quick or whatever if you want. But that made me angry today, Bobby. I was like, man, get your own ideas.
I'm glad you brought it up, because App State Twitter did come to the rescue of Max Renfro very quickly to let Duke know, hey, bro, plagiarism isn't a joke, okay?
And you thought you were going to get away with that? Like, we weren't going to see that and call you out? Like, unreal.
And like you said, literally frame by frame. Like, it's legitimately frame by frame. Like, they both come out of the water. It's the rocks in the background.
They take a tight shot to a waterfall. Then both players start banging on the water and splashing around. It's literally almost the same video. It's like they showed it to him before and said, do this. Like, it's crazy.
Here's the step-by-step storybook on what we're doing today. Just watch what App did, and we're going to do it, but in blue. Yeah, that's basically what you did.
Exactly. Oh, it's funny though. So thank you for letting me vent that out with y'all tonight, because that just wasn't right.
Yeah, Duke's getting ready to chalk up another.
Max Renfro and the App State football video team. They're
so
awesome.
good. They've won numerous awards over the past few years. So like he said, Max Renfro, App State football, or App State football video on Twitter as well. Check both of them out, because they do phenomenal work. App State equipment, all of those guys that they have there. I mean, there's a lot of really good universities around the country that do a great job, but they do it like no other. They also dropped their uniform reveal today with the legendary Jerry Moore.
A fantastic video, a fantastic original video that they clearly put a lot of effort into thinking about. Shout out to Troy's Diner in Boone, North Carolina for doing that video for our team. It was super, super cool. Classic jerseys for the Apps this weekend, all black with the classic stripes down the middle of the helmet. They haven't done that in years. So really excited to see that this weekend. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I'm also excited to see this Carolina Panthers team move on to 2-0 against the New Orleans Saints, because it's going to be happening. Jameis Winston's going to return to his old ways. I think him and Sam Darnold probably have a pretty identical stat line. I think a couple tutties, a couple INTs for each one, probably going to be the outcome, unfortunately. But I think it's going to be a good time, going to be a good game. I'm excited to see it. Let's take down an in-division opponent for the first time in what feels like forever for this Carolina Panthers team, and bring back the keep pounding, please. Panthers,
yes,
bring it back. Don't let it go. Even Ron Rivera's daughter was a little disappointed that we took it out. If you don't follow Courtney on social media, you absolutely should, because even she was vocal about keeping and bringing back the keep pounding chant. But that's going to do it for this episode of All Aqcess Podcast. We'll be back, I'm sure, talking about the outcome of this Saints game and continuing to move forward for the Houston Texans team that looked even better than, well, I guess what anyone would have projected, because everyone thought that they were going to suck, and they came out with a big dub because Tyrod Taylor is a baller. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We really